Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. Ahead on the program.
Shut out the lights, the party is over. Mississippians have seen what is going on in this system and they're sick of it.
Governor Tate Reeves' top challenger in November's election declares war on corruption in Mississippi, and the Republican incumbent is in his crosshairs. We'll hear from Democrat Brandon Presley this morning, and
I'm filled with survivor's guilt. The Jackson that I grew up with wasn't like this.
A Jackson native and researcher examines the city's water problem. She's calling academia to step up to help struggling communities. Our interview with Dr. Erica Walker and more are straight ahead on Mississippi Insight. A lot of campaign watchers have been wondering when gubernatorial candidate Brandon Presley would begin his big push in the city of Jackson. The predominantly black votership will be a critical factor in his election prospects. Tuesday, the candidate came to the capital city with a speech that highlighted what he calls corruption in state politics and the need for substantial ethics reforms. Governor Tate Reeves was the clear target of Presley's rhetoric, and his address in front of the state capitol offers yet another indication of a central thrust in his campaign for the governor's office. We want to play his speech for you this morning and give you a chance to parse his words and his intentions in a potentially Presley administration.
When I walk by the sign down here on Mississippi Street that says State Capitol Building, State of Mississippi, unfortunately, under our current state government, it should say for sale under that sign. We know in our hearts, Mississippians in all 82 counties know in our hearts that what the welfare scandal has exposed over the last few years is really true of a deeper infection of corruption in state government. It's always been there. This scandal just pulled back the Band-Aid and showed us how bad it really was. We know clearly from what we've seen in this saga that has played out in the press that if you're a regular person, state government doesn't work for you. You may get invited into the Capitol, but that's just about all you're going to get in this building. Under Tate Reeves' watch, $77 million was stolen and diverted from working families to pet projects of the well-connected campaign contributors and folks in high places. If you're Brett Favre and you need $5 million for a volleyball court, that's no problem. Tate's got you covered. If you're Tate Reeves' personal trainer, the guy that teaches him to do jumping jacks, then you can get $1.3 million. This type of corruption and this sort of good old boy network makes me sick at my stomach. I have a deep-seated resentment against how state government works for those who are in power, those who know their way around the Capitol, those who are paid to find their way around the Capitol. But it doesn't work for folks like my family and thousands of families here in Mississippi who can't write a campaign check, who can't hire a lobbyist, who don't know where the best restaurants in Jackson are while the legislature's in session. I was raised by a single mama in a small town in northeast Mississippi, 1,906 people. I know all of them, I joke and tell folks. My mama struggled to pay the bills. We would go for days on end with our power cut off, not because my mama didn't want to work, not because my mama didn't work, simply because she didn't have the money. Some of my earliest memories in life as a young man was going behind a laundromat on Will Robbins Highway in Nettleton and filling up 3-liter bottles of water, not because we didn't know we had a water bill, simply because my mama couldn't pay it. Millions of taxpayer dollars were stolen from programs to support people just like my mama and mamas and daddies and grandparents all across Mississippi. And they went to celebrities, volleyball court, and the governor's personal trainer, and all sorts of pet projects. Let me make this clear. People in Mississippi know in their hearts that Tate Reeves will not fight this corrupt system. He won't fight this corrupt system because it's helped him get where he is, and he's hoping that this corrupt system will keep him in the governor's office. Don't believe me? When a veteran prosecutor, an independent veteran prosecutor, got just a little too close to the governor's buddies and some of his campaign contributors, he fired him and replaced him, guess what, with a firm ran by his campaign donors. This culture of corruption benefits Tate Reeves. It benefits lobbyists and giant corporations who fund his campaigns, and that's why he's worked to protect those lobbyists by firing an independent investigator. I'm telling every Mississippian that you cannot trust Tate Reeves to clean up the corruption in state government. And I'll get about the business of cleaning it up day one. As Public Service Commissioner, just over there in the Woolfolk building, I saw firsthand, up close and personal, how big utility companies many times would put their profits above people. When I became a Public Service Commissioner, my first meeting I went into, I saw that we were feeding the utility representatives donuts and coffee. Now let that sit in for a minute. Feeding the very people that state government is supposed to regulate. That's wrong, and that's why I ended that practice immediately and made some of the corporate lobbyists mad. I've stood up to giant corporations when they tried to fleece Mississippi taxpayers in footing the multi-billion-dollar Kemper County power plant. Despite both Democrats and Republicans and their lobbyists with big checks encouraging me to vote yes, I had the guts and the backbone to vote no, telling people in the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and all of the folks who were cheerleading this boondoggle, no. I opened up meetings at the Public Service Commission to the public. Believe it or not, we were voting on billions of dollars of costs paid for by Mississippians, and it was all done in secret. I wrote for the Attorney General's opinion that opened up those meetings so that the public could know what was happening at the Public Service Commission. When I'm governor, I intend first day to declare war on corruption, period. It all starts with sanitizing a sick and infected system in this building. A system where if you know the right corners to hide around as a lobbyist, you can get done what you want done. But if you're a working family, if you're a small business owner that can't afford even the gas at $3 a gallon to get to Jackson, you're shut out and you're left out. It is a system, if Mississippians could see under this dome, if they could see under this dome, it would sicken them too. But they know in their guts it's going on. They know every day they're sold out to some special interest for somebody's little deal, somebody's little deal, some contributor's little deal, and it's never about our deal as Mississippians. Tate Reeves will not stand up and do anything about it. You know why I say that? He's done nothing about it. He's done zero. He benefits today from a system in which is not producing benefits for Mississippians, but producing benefits for his buddies. As we declare war on corruption, I'll call a special session within the regular session to put an ethics reform package on the table, and we're going to see where the House and Senate members stand. We're going to see where they stand when it comes to cleaning up this system and saying no to their lobbyist buddies. We're going to make sure Mississippians come first. Here's what will be in that package, one plank of it, that we pull together the day I walk off this inaugural stage. Banning unlimited gifts from lobbyists to lawmakers and elected officials, from the governor all the way down. If you're elected, you're going to come under the ban. We will stop the unlimited flow of special interest money to state officials and require weekly gift and lobbying disclosures. We need to know once a week who's being taken out to dinner, who's gone on a golf trip. The public has a right to know. Place limits on the currently unlimited flow of campaign contributions from individuals, political action committees, and completely banning direct contributions from corporations. Banning state office holders and candidates from office from accepting contributions while the legislature's in session. One of the reasons we can't get anything done, and when I say we, I'm talking about folks like myself in Mississippi who doesn't have a lobbyist. The reason we can't get anything done is the good old boys and the good old girls in this building while the legislature is in session are more concerned about raising money for their campaign or going out on a golf trip or having some big dinner with a lobbyist than they are about our business. Clean the system up. And it starts also with banning those contributions while the legislature is in session. This is not rocket science. It's being done in other states in the United States, and we can do it here. Stopping the revolving door, good Lord, at the number of people we see leave state service, whether elected officials, high-placed state employees in the executive branch or in executive offices in state agencies, and the next thing you know, they're back with a lobbyist badge on, taking somebody to lunch, lurking around a corner, trying to peddle influence and sell out the people of Mississippi. There should be a 1-year waiting period for any former government official to lobby the state legislature and for lobbyists to join the state legislature. You're not going to clean up this system with a revolving door. You're not going to clean up this system with having somebody leave one day from government service and come back the very next day working on issues that they were working for when they were on our payroll. And this year, we know that the Public Records Act is up for rediscussion, reauthorization. Number one, that's a sad fact that we have to come back and revisit it. The only reason these type of repealers get put in bills that are of the public interest is so that they can be tinkered with to benefit campaign contributors, lobbyists, special interest money. Over the coming weeks, our campaign will discuss how we can win this war on corruption so state government works for Mississippians, not just Tate Reeves, Well Hill lobbyists, how we can stop our current office holders from being bought and sold to the highest bidder for the next gig. And we're going to send a message in the tune of that old Willie Nelson song, "Shut out the lights, the party's over." Shut out the lights, the party is over. Mississippians have seen what is going on in this system, and they're sick of it. We're going to make big campaign check writers mad. We're going to make lobbyists mad. We're going to make special interest people mad because they've had their day in Mississippi long enough. And we see what it's benefited us. Nothing. We're going to move state government back on the side of working people. Working people who got up this morning in Tupelo and went to Cooper Tire, got a sausage and biscuit running late. They can't come down here and lobby anybody. They expect their state government to be held to a high accountability. To somebody in Gulfport, got up this morning, going to work at the Huddle House, got an issue they care about. They can't write Tate Reeves a $5,000, $10,000 check, but they need a governor on their side and not a governor that's sold out. Tate Reeves will not tackle corruption. Let me say that again. He will not tackle corruption. He doesn't have the guts to do it. It'll make too many of his buddies mad. It'll upset the system that he has benefited for in his entire time he's been in state service. We'll declare war on corruption. We'll win a war on corruption by showing Mississippians that we can have a government that serves them and not just the contributors, not just the lobbyists, not just the folks that I said earlier know all the little ante-rooms and the little closets and where you can pull out this legislator and talk to them. This system is so sick, we've had legislators go on tape saying how they were proud of their committee assignments because they called it a red meat committee where you got to eat steaks and raise money. I never thought we'd find a time which it was that bold to say that. We're going to turn state government's focus back on folks like my mama and many mamas out there, many working families and small businesses. And we're going to do it by ending corruption. We're going to do it by forcing the legislature to put their foot on base on historic ethics reform. You can't hide in a special session with one bill on the table.
That's Brandon Presley speaking in Jackson Tuesday before his supporters and news media. We want to make clear that playing back a large excerpt from his campaign speech does not constitute an endorsement. That's not our job. We believe in balance over time, and throughout this election season, this program will bring excerpts from Presley and Governor Reeves as we have done in the past. The same goes for other candidates for high office in Mississippi. We hope these excerpts will better inform you, the voters of our state, in the weeks and months leading to these key elections. Up next, we'll recap a Jackson lawmaker's guilty plea to federal criminal charges. What did Representative Earl Banks admit to? Mississippi Insight continues in a moment. Federal prosecutors say State Representative Earl Banks is cooperating with them. This follows his guilty plea on one charge of a felony tax crime in federal court. Banks acknowledged in a plea agreement announced Wednesday that he willfully made a false statement on his 2018 federal tax returns. He failed to report $582,000 he earned through the sale of property owned by his family. This felony carries a penalty of up to 3 years in prison, a $250,000 fine, and 1 year of supervised release. Judge Carl Tarif said in court that this conviction may lead to Banks being unfit to hold public office. According to Banks' attorney, Rob McDuff, the Mississippi Constitution protects members of the legislature found guilty of tax felonies.
Section 44 of the Constitution states that a person does not have to leave the legislature if they're convicted of a tax crime.
Okay,
So-
but in this case, Judge Reeves said that that's still a possibility.
No, well, I think Judge Reeves was not aware of that specific provision. That's why he used the word may. So I just think it's something he hasn't looked at, because that's not an issue that's before him.
Sentencing is currently under seal and a sentencing hearing is set for August 21st. And another development for Jackson leadership, Police Chief James Davis is retiring from his office. Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba made the announcement Friday. Davis has served more than 30 years at the department, starting as a patrol officer. He was named the Chief of Police in September 2018. Assistant Chief Joseph Wade was named the interim police chief until a permanent replacement can be chosen. Mississippi Insight continues in a moment. An opinion piece in the journal Scientific America caught our eye a few days ago. It's titled "The Jackson Water Crisis Didn't Need to Happen," and it discusses how the academic community can do more to help disadvantaged communities, not just here, but across the nation. Joining us via Zoom to talk about that is the author of that column. Dr. Erica Walker is a Jackson native and assistant professor of epidemiology at Brown University and head of the Community Noise Lab. That group supports communities struggling with air, water, and other forms of pollution. Dr. Walker, welcome to Mississippi Insight.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, first, Dr. Walker, what prompted you to write this column for Scientific American?
Well, I'm born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi, and I'm currently doing research in the state. And I just thought, as a Jackson native and a person that's doing research here, that we can do a much better job than what we have been doing in the past. And with my vow to do better.
Your writing here is truly a call to the academic community to move more directly into community education and involvement. Why is that so important?
Well, I think a lot of the times we as researchers, we tend to tell people what we're going to do, and we don't take the time to step back and ask communities what they need. So I feel like one of those things that we need to do as researchers working in areas like Jackson, Mississippi, is to take a step back and ask, well, what do you need? And then formulate our agendas around community needs.
How do you embody this approach in your own work with your Community Noise Lab for this instance?
Yep. So when I came back to Jackson, I wanted to do noise and air pollution research, but I had a community conversation asking community members, well, what do you want me to do? And they told me they wanted me to focus on water. And they also told me that they wanted me to leave behind something that they could use for continued advocacy. And for me, that was training up the next generation of researchers to carry on the mantle. So for me, that's working with local high schools, like I'm working with the Pineywood School, and local community colleges, training them on how to do the research and letting them be the ones that take over in the near future.
Could you share anything that you've learned from your work that might be news to our audience?
I've learned that we as researchers definitely need to be more humble. Sometimes that doctorate degree needs to come with a slice of humble pie. But for me, listening to community needs and being responsive to those needs has been the best learning experience, because like I said, I'm a noise researcher, but I branched off into water quality, which was not something that I originally intended to do.
It is one thing for academics and scientists to become involved. Do you believe that policymakers are prepared to listen to those voices?
I think if we come with the agenda of wanting to improve things and wanting to leave things better off than we found them, I think there's also a breakdown in trust. Sometimes policymakers don't know what our agendas are, but I think if we're clear about all of those things and then do the work respectfully, I think that, yes, politicians would be more than willing to work with researchers like myself, especially when we come with the expressed desire to improve things, make things better than when we found them.
You mentioned training the next generation of researchers. Are you optimistic based on what you've seen so far?
Yes. So this summer, the Piney Woods High School students and a couple of community college students from Itawamba Community College and Colin Community College are going to be conducting the majority of the work. So they're going to be out there in the fields testing water. They're going to be helping us with our public health study. So judging from last year when we were training them to this year, them taking a leading role, absolutely. I can only imagine what they'll be in 10 years from now.
Real quick, as a Jackson native, I mean, what do you make of the water crisis that's plaguing the capital city here?
So to be honest with you, I'm filled with survivor's guilt. The Jackson that I grew up with wasn't like this. So I feel extreme guilt because I ask myself, if I was a student going to schools in the Jackson Public School District today, would I have the same opportunities? And judging by the paper that we just published that shows that every time a boil water notice is issued, it impacts school attendance rates up to 10%, unexcused absence rates up to 10%. I know that I didn't have those disruptions with my education when I was in the Jackson Public School District. So I just feel like when we think about all of the environmental issues that are happening on the ground now, I just think that these are just these additional burdens for an already burdened community to have to absorb.
Dr. Walker, thank you for your time and for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you all.
All right, nice meeting you too. And we'll be right back. Big thanks to Dr. Erica Walker for joining us this week. We'll be back next week with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown from all of us here at 12 News. Make it a great weekend.